I was a little worried there. Everybody was talking when you're introducing me, and I thought maybe they're not paying attention. And I'm an old school teacher, and I would suggest respectfully, if you want to talk, go outside. And if you don't want to talk and listen to me, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to have a little drink of water because when I got here, the elevator didn't work. I'm not exactly a spring chicken, but I made it up the stairs. I worried about other people might not make it up the stairs, so we're trying to get that elevator working when we can. I don't know what you've discussed in the last 2 days. I'm going to try to give you my thoughts as far as the Congressman for all of Alaska, which makes this nation an Arctic nation. That's the only part of the United States that's Arctic, is Alaska. We play a lot of different roles in this in the United States about different states and what their assets are. The Arctic is the future of this globe. It is probably the answer to a lot of our civilization. It has the largest amounts of all our own resources that man uses today. Not only fish, but oil, minerals, and actually I think is like Billy Mitchell said about who controls Alaska controls this globe. Unfortunately, I think most of you might recognize that the United States of America still does not recognize the value of Alaska and the Arctic. We are very far behind, not just icebreakers, but in research, infrastructure, transportation, all types of communication is really way behind. You know, right across the border, Russia has put in 7 new battalions. They have an Arctic command. They have 13 new airfields. They're building 17 new ports. And I don't believe it's for aggression, at least I hope it is not. It's primarily for laying claim to those resources that belong to the United States of America and the rest of the world, because no one's counteracting that. The fleet of icebreakers they have is awesome. China's got icebreakers, and China is probably the most aggressive one of the whole bunch as far as nations goes, because they seek out resources for their billions of people and lay claim or buy. So I'm just suggesting that we have a big job. We do belong to a caucus, an ocean caucus, which I'm very actively involved in, but also an Arctic caucus, which is necessary, I think, to try to enlighten the American people and enlighten the Congress. It's hard to do when you think about Ohio or Iowa or Nebraska. They don't have any interest in the Arctic. They have interest in the anarchy. And again, the United States has been deeply involved in that, but that's not where it should be. That's yesterday. This is today. We have a new administration that's, I would say, relatively ignorant on this subject. We're trying to educate them. I've been working hard to make sure that, and keep in mind, the president submitted a budget. Every president, I've had 45 budgets on my desk in 45 years. I want you to know I never listened to a president yet. Our job, constitutionally, is in reality is to write the budget, to raise the money and spend the money, not the President of the United States. Unfortunately, a lot of the media conveys the thought that he is the king. And that's been, invading our society for the last 35 years. We have to, as a Congress, reinstate ourselves as the leaders of this country. But in doing so, again, I'm stressing the Arctic, the shortness of the Arctic. I mentioned some of it. We have really no port in the Arctic. We have difficulty. We have not mapped the bottom of the oceans up there. We're in the process of doing that now. As you know, most of our Arctic is relatively shallow until it's quite a ways offshore. Numerous areas want the so-called Arctic ports. Nome is one of the leaders. Difficult because it's a very deep and very shallow water. Have to go a long ways out with another bulkhead. Blossom Point, the Clarence Point, all these have potentials. Have not, we're having a study now done by the Coast Guard of which would be the best one. Not just for oil exploration. I mean, that is one of the big things we hear about and see about. One of the good things about oil exploration up there, we did have a pretty good communication system in, and it was removed. And I can't blame them for doing that. We have to reinstate that. It's mostly because of the traffic. You think about 147 vessels went through the Arctic last year. I think 10 years ago we had 147 this year. It will be the route if the ice continues to become thinner. It's closer to the markets. That's what China is really interested in, exporting their products instead of going to the Bering Straits, which would be, very frankly, it's dangerous there, but it's a lot more dangerous than the Arctic. We don't have the oil spill capability to take and recover from one of those ships. I think we have to do that. We have not studied the migration of fish. The different fish have gone farther north because of the acidity of the water and the warmness of the water. We're not preparing that. We have outlawed any fishing, which I think is good until we do make the studies that are necessary. We can do it safely. Again, I think maybe one of the pluses we have is, again, with the Russia's buildup, we may become more aware of it in the Congress, which I think is very good. It's hard for one person to continue when you have all the other things you have to do just to keep talking about the Arctic. And a lot of people don't think we should be involved in the Arctic. I have to tell you that. Some people on the environmental side that say, oh, we don't need to really get involved up there yet. It will hurt it. The wilderness will be destroyed. That's nonsense. In the sense we are and they are, the other countries are going to be deeply involved. Again, I mentioned I have a congressional body that works with me as much as I can. Rick Larson here in Washington belongs to that. I have a couple people out of the, believe it or not, out of the coast. Maine is very actively involved in it. So we have a group that is relatively small. It's going to take a lot of education, a lot of, I say, getting that message out why the Arctic is important to ourselves. Again, I mentioned the mineral dependency we have in this country. We're importing most of our minerals. They are abundant in the Arctic. Do we want to develop them? I think we should have to, or not let them get in other people's hands. Strategy for us, again, is putting ports in, navigation, mapping the seabeds, and studying with science, not just nonsense science, good science, and what is occurring there, not with fear. One of the things that problematic to me is the constant harping on climate change and we're going to solve it. We just legalized marijuana in Alaska. Just keep that in mind. Someone's been smoking that too, because we're not going to solve it. I keep trying to stress, if we don't get ahead of this curve, the United States is going to lose, and Alaska will lose. And that's not good for this country. It's not good for this world. We have too many unrest spots in this country, this globe right now. We don't need one in the Arctic. I'm hoping that we can convince the administration to participate more and to listen to their people that know a little bit, and we can inform them through your help in this room. A lot of you in this room have scientific backgrounds, and you can help me convince the administration where I think we should be. The spending of the money, not just on icebreakers, because there's been some thoughts about icebreakers. I have a little problem with the Coast Guard. We have Admiral Smith here in the room, and a little bit of trouble with the Coast Guard because $1.5 billion for an icebreaker is quite high when we have a $20 trillion debt. So how can we get icebreakers that can do the job in the Arctic on demand right now? And I argue you can lease them, have them maintained, fulfill the mission, and we'd have a better ice-breaking capability. I do not want to lease one, as we did for a while in Antarctica, from Russia. I want them to be American ships, American-built, and American-manned for the Arctic. We have one old icebreaker now, the Healy, and the other two are in dock down here in Seattle. And I don't think we'll repair them because the hulls are not wore out, all the innards are wore out, and they're very expensive to do. I look forward to my next 2 years and the years following that to trying to bring the Arctic home to the American people, the importance to them, each one of them. And if I can do that with your help, then I feel quite good about what we've done. I'm proud of being part of the Arctic Circle. Above it, I live. I have to tell you one short personal story. I came to Alaska for one reason, to get out of the heat. I was raised in Northern California where it got to 110 degrees, and my father was from the old school that when you turn 7, you become the hired hand. So we ran the ranch. But I used to dream of someplace cold. No snakes and no poison oak. I did my military time, came home, it was still hot. Told my mother, my father had passed away, I'm going to Alaska. And she says, nothing up there, a bunch of savages, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to drive dogs in the cold. I'm going to catch fur in the cold. And I'm going to mine gold in the cold. And I did that for 12 years. Actually 13 years. And lo and behold, I got elected to Congress. I went back to purgatory, where the temperature is hotter than hell, and there's all kinds of two-legged snakes, and a lot of poison ivy. So I'm spending my time in purgatory when I left heaven. So someday, possibly, I'll go back, but I do love my state. It's probably the grandest state in the union, and for anybody from other states, I will not ask for your forgiveness. I do love my state. It has such great potential if we just realize it, because it is the Arctic. Thank you, and I gladly answer any questions. Thank you very much. Now, he's going to read the questions to me because I think it's very embarrassing if I go backwards and turn my back to you. I can read them right here. The question is, can Congress and new administration come together to build new icebreakers? I don't think it's the administration's fault as far as the president goes. It is the fault of the Coast Guard because they want to own the vessels. Can we appropriate? I've got a bill in to appropriate the money. Will the other congressmen appropriate that much money for an area they don't know much about? Is another story. They still don't get it through their heads about the potential and what other countries are doing. Another question is, what is your opinion on North Korea and an attack on Alaska? Very frankly, it's possible. I would say quite unlikely. We have 47 missiles in Alaska that are command to destroy any Korean missile that's launched. In fact, I tried to get the military to shoot down the first one the guy ever launched. They wouldn't do it. That'd be an international incident, but I thought it'd be a great deal. He shoots off his first rocket and gets blown up in his backyard. I mean, think about an impression that would make. But of course, Alaska is the closest to Korea. Hawaii would probably be their target. I don't know if this little fat guy is as dumb as he thinks he is. But, you know, I'm not happy with what they're doing. I would say that if there's a missile launched this next week and he's apparently going to do, there could be repercussions. I don't take that lightly, because one thing I don't want us to get into is a third world war with nuclear power. I think that would be the disaster of all. I no doubt we would win the war, but what cost? But that man is not sane, and North Korea. So I do think if he keeps it up, he doesn't think he thinks he's infallible now, there would be some very serious repercussions. And how can we help you support an Arctic science? You talk to your legislators, talk to your congressmen, talk about we should have a cadre of Arctic scientists, period. It studies from all aspects. One of my biggest complaints of all our agencies is they take best science available. The worst words were ever written, best science available. In some areas, they don't have any science, period. And they try to make a decision on that best science available sentence. So it's going to take, like I say, yourselves and your congressmen from Seattle and Oregon and I hate to say it, all the blue belt, the blue garter belt. You don't understand what I'm talking about unless you know politics. If you ever look at the election map, there's a blue garter that goes all around the United States. But they're not really that interested. It's going to take you to take and inform those people, not the red states so much, but we need their support for science, good scientists on the Arctic to study it all, not just climate change. Let's study, like I say, the water and the ice and the things that are occurring and what we can do. And again, the bottom of the ocean. We haven't done that, and we have to do it. Now, the other, standing just a few feet away from soon-be-condemned Alaska Way Viaduct. How do you communicate Alaska's need for support for federally funded infrastructure projects as we have done in other states whose populations may justify the investment better? We do pretty good in Alaska. Our biggest problem is the nation now. As far as the tunnel goes here, I say shame on you. I told them not to build a tunnel. I was chairman of transportation and wanted to build a tunnel, so probably the worst thing you can do is building a tunnel. Just go to Boston and you find out what I'm telling you. Still doesn't work. $39 billion later. Very frankly, I thought they made a big mistake. That's not my business. I'm just saying you're wasting a lot of money, and it'll probably never run correctly. It's just one of those things like in Boston, it still doesn't run correctly. Water's coming down, and all the light fixtures are full of water. It's not a good thing. But Alaska, and what we have to do as a nation is bite the bullet. I listened to the Trump administration. Everybody's on board about building infrastructure. Sounds good, but no one wants to pay for it. They don't want to have a tax. When I was chairman of transportation, I proposed, at that time, gas was $1.39. I proposed 5 cents tax, make it 23.5 cents, and index it. 1991, we passed 18.5 tax on our gasoline for infrastructure into a fund. And it worked. But we didn't index it. So the buying power, 18.5 cents now, you have 8 cents worth of buying power. And that's why we're so far behind. So we're going to have to, very frankly, call it a user fee. We have to charge the user directly for transportation as long as we only spend it on transportation. I believe the American public will support that. I have people in my own party who say, we're not going to have any kind of taxes. Well, that's well and good. But you won't have any infrastructure, and that is the economy of this nation. The ability to move product from importing and from exporting. Good new ports and highways and railways. That's what we have to have. And we believe the public's going to have to stand up and say, we want this done and we're willing to pay for it. I will give one group that's very upfront that does support my proposal, and that's the trucking industry. Because they know every minute they take off their transportation need, every minute is money in their pocket. So they're willing to pay for it. A lot of people aren't. And I think, very frankly, it's short-sighted. What changes the OCS law should we shoot for? Frankly, I can't give you an idea right now. I would have to think about that from what changes you think probably know better than I do. Okay, what else? You got any more questions? Very quiet. I don't know. Yes.
We heard yesterday from the state of Washington representative in the House that indicated some difference of opinion about the development of the petroleum industry in Alaska. How do you try to build the bridge between our neighbors here in Washington and Alaska as to a strategy for the development of the Arctic and how important it is to have resource development?
Well, and I wish that, who was it that talked? I may have to smack him one. Who was it? Was it a lady or a man? Huh? Hard to do, right up front. You got to remember districts that people are elected from, and I respect them. I just don't agree with them. And we try to figure out how we can get those that do support us, how we can communicate with them and build the numbers up greater. And I'm pretty good at that. I have, for your information, had more bills signed into law than any other congressman. So it means I had to work across the aisle. There's only one of me. And I'm sort of proud of that, more so than if you ask any of your congressmen here, I doubt if any of them ever had a bill signed by the president when they were the prime sponsor. They have to understand that you look at the nation as a whole. And I don't disrespect people that disagree with me. I just try to convince them or people around them that my position is correct for the development of resources, the studying of the Arctic, the scientific research is needed. And why anybody object to that, I think, is very short-sighted. It may represent their districts, that's their privilege. Okay, based on NDAA rest, who has the lead in the defense and security per the, that's an interesting question. Who has the lead in defense for the security study? He'd be right up front with you. I'm not confident that we know yet. I say that respect, I don't know. I think General Mathis is probably one of the lead guys. Coast Guard is very actively involved. By the way, everybody got whipped out of shape because the president suggested, he didn't put it in writing, that we were going to cut the Coast Guard from $1 billion when their budget is $9 billion. It had been devastating, and we've given them so much more responsibility, so I can just about assure you that's going to be, remember I said that Congress writes the budget. Where is the preferred location for a deep draft port in Alaska? Right now, if it's going to happen, if I was to pick, I would say because of the location, it may be out of Kotzebue at Blossom Point. We're finishing the road there. It is the deepest port. Again, Nome wants it. Now, if the Corps decides they can build it at Nome, I'm fine with that. But I think they will look at the depth and then find out whether that's the appropriate way. Whether then part of it, should a Coast Guard base be located in Alaska besides Kodiak? Probably will happen. We have, Kodiak is the largest Coast Guard base in the United States with the different diversified equipment. But, you know, their interest is, frankly, Korea. And the transportation and the Aleutian, the fishing activity. And this area would be really a Coast Guard for the Arctic, And that's probably will happen in time. If we get the port built, I'm definitely sure there will be a Coast Guard presence there, and including headquarters, including C-130s, and probably stationed at Kodiak, Kotzebue if Blossom Point is the choice, or Nome if it's choice there, and there would be, of course, the cutters that we want, which are crucially important. All right, I don't see any more questions. Keep up one more.
So what practical hints can you give us for helping to facilitate engaging the rest of the country and being aware of us as an Arctic nation thanks to Alaska?
Well, I hope you talk to, maybe we can do it together. As far as states that are involved and put together, I'm a great one, I hate it, but I'm a great one in visual education. You know, I watch National Geographic instead of watching Deadliest Catch and a few other things. We ought to be having a program on the science, the potential, on the what's there, what we think is there. Let people be aware of it. You know, everybody, we've got Alaska's guilty of this too because they don't put any money in it in the sense that we have 11 shows about Alaska on TV. And the most amazing thing, if anybody thinks about watching it, it's got to be the dumbest shows I've ever seen. You know? I am different, I'll tell you that. But anyway, they got the Yukon Men, for instance. That's right downtown from down the river about 400 miles from my hometown. And they have this Arctic men. And here they are out there. Oh, we don't get our moose, we're going to starve to death. There's a filming crew there, for God's sakes. And they got a store right around the corner. So, I mean, but it does, people do watch it. So we ought to put a show on about the Arctic. We have one there, but the lady lives way up. Now, it's probably one of the most real ones there is up there, if you've seen that one. But we need to go to the scientific side of it, the need for the Coast Guard, what we don't have. The show, I mean, I think you get people interested in it, I really do. The one time we really were interested in the Arctic was when we had those 4 gray whales that were frozen in. My God, everybody knew where Alaska was at that time. I called my friends up in Barrow. I said, why don't you go out and shoot them? They said, we don't eat gray whales. I didn't know that. And by the way, the sad part about that story, after all that work and the Russians get involved and all the money that was spent, they became a little bit weaker and they made it about 300 miles and orchid whales ate them. See, I mean, that's reality. But I mean, at least people were aware of Alaska at that time, you know. Anything else? Oh, yes, ma'am.
Congressman Young, I just want to thank you for your support of the Coast Guard, knowing how important it is not just to Alaska, but to every coastal part of the United States. You know, the last time we got a really important funding real progress for our icebreakers, they were funded in the Navy's budget, not in the Coast Guard budget. And given the emphasis on increasing the Defense Department budget, you know, an icebreaker sounds like a lot for $1 billion, but frankly, in comparison to some of the other hardware that's being funded, it's not that much. So I'm just wondering, is there any chance of getting those icebreakers funded in the Navy budget the way the last ones were?
Very frankly, I think you hit a very good answer to some of our problem. Duncan Hunter, who is the chairman of the committee, we are looking very strongly at the Navy building the ships out of the defense budget. Hello? But yes, you got a good point. We think that's one way we can fund it. We're going to really try it, see if we can't get it there, because I just directly to the Coast Guard, I don't think it's going to happen. Now, the Coast Guard doesn't like that. That's where we have to convince them, if you're going to an icebreaker, it's going to come through the military. And we think it can be done. Because we'd like to have three. One is, you know, something can happen to it. It's a big bill. But like I say, Russia's building them by the lots, and they're nuclear-powered icebreakers. And China's building, they don't have any Arctic at all. I mean, they're out there going to be in the international waters. So we need an icebreaker. Lisa has put in, Senator Murkowski has got a bill that, you know, if we can, we will have authorization, but we won't get the funding to the Coast Guard. If it has to be done, we have to put it in the defense bill, you know. So thank you very much. Yes, sir. Meet Treadwell, how are you? Good.
Hey, fast question. Were you thinking about Port Clarence or Cape Blossom when you were talking about Cape Blossom?
No, Port Clarence is a private partnership. They have great potential, and they're not trying to get federal dollars. Blossom would be federal dollars, and it's a deep port. And the only reason it has advantage over Port Clarence would not have the advantage over Blossom is because of the infrastructure. There's nothing there. Coast Guard Station, if we actually use air traffic to get there, but there's no road, we need a good road. So it may happen, but they think they can do it, and I'm all for it. Bering Straits is very aggressive. So it'd be those two. You know, I mean, I've asked for the study for all three so that the Coast Guard, not the Coast Guard, the Navy, Defense Department, and the Coast Guard can pick the best one. I'm not going to pick it. I'm a politician. You think I'm going to pick, you know, one person over the other person, you're crazy. So those three are in the running. I tell you a story about Meade, and I think it's a funny story. He doesn't. We have a project in Alaska called King Cove Road, and it's the most, I think, asinine thing in the world when they're trying to protect a goose over a human life. But that's beside the point. When Sean Parnell was governor and Meade was lieutenant governor, I told Sean, let's just build it. Let's just go out and run a cat up and down that and build it. And Sean said, I might go to jail. And I said, no, that's what Meade Treadwell's for. He's the lieutenant governor. But we never built the road. We never built the road. And by the way, Meade, thank you for your interest in the Arctic and the ocean. He's a leader in this arena, and I respect him deeply for his interest in the oceans, period. While I'm on that subject, on the oceans, if I can, we're running out of time, aren't we? Okay, I want to just suggest something that's dear to my heart is the pollution of the oceans by countries that are manufacturing, exporting to us. And we address the issue by trying to clear our shores after it arrives. We, by satellite, have been able to spot these vast areas, sometimes 3, 4 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles long and wide, of trash floating in the ocean, toxic. And I would like to suggest that somebody, if I can get one of my big rich people that want to think about it, I would like to take a ship, maybe an aircraft carrier, and reconfigure it so that it has a bow with conveyor belts and grabbers, we can come up to that pile of junk, bring it aboard by conveyor belts, and separate it by automation, where the plastics, which are the evil, are separated out and turned into oil to run the ship. And the woods that are salvageable are salvaged, the metal are melted on the ship itself. Because we do little good trying to clean it up from our shores. Sounds good, looks good, but it doesn't do the job. We have a polluted ocean by countries that export to us, and we should stop that by telling them we're not going to buy any more stuff you keep dumping in the ocean. But I'd like to build that ship. I have a dream of devouring the waste of other countries and keeping our oceans clean so our fish are clean and we're clean. That sounds like a greenie, but something that I will tell you that I believe very strongly. I know my time's up, and God bless you all, and have a good meeting. And if I bored you, I'm sorry. If I didn't bore you, I'm happy. God bless you. Thank you very much.